I played 2013's Tomb Raider about 10 years ago, and it was the first story game I ever completed, and cemented the game's protagonist Lara Croft as my first video game crush. Okay, second video game crush. And with her recently coming to Dead by Daylight, I figured there was no better time to make a video on her. Oh, she's gonna love it here. And it gave me an excuse to play a game I used to love. It's definitely action, adventure, not horror, but there's no complaints from me. Throughout the three games, we see Lara go from an archaeologist stranded on an island fighting to survive, to a badass one-man army killing machine. I replayed the trilogy to figure out her strength, speed, durability, and weapons to answer how powerful is Lara Croft. Lara's physical strength is one of her weaker stats, but nothing to scoff at. She is extremely athletic, easily lifting herself onto higher platforms, climbs rock walls, and runs while carrying all of her gear for long periods of time without tiring. She can jump long distances, and she can do a muscle up, something I bet only about 5 of you watching can do. She can push and pull heavy structures to solve puzzles. She also consistently shoves large animals off of her while she's getting mauled. These animals include wolves, jaguars, and even bears. A Siberian wolf can weigh over 170 pounds on the high end, while jaguars can weigh nearly 350 pounds. These of course have nothing on the bear. Rise of the Tomb Raider is set in Siberia, home of the Siberian brown bear, which on average weigh from 300 to 550 pounds, while the biggest ones reach 800 pounds. And just like the women I'm into, this bear was not on the skinny side. Lara wasn't throwing down and just manhandling these guys like she was the predator from Prey, but the fact she was able to squabble with the bear truly trying to kill her at all is a testament to her strength. In terms of her physical strength applied to combat, she consistently overpowers trained soldiers in hand-to-hand. This becomes even more impressive when you take into account the fact that she's typically in extremely disadvantageous positions, and running off nearly no sleep and multiple injuries. Circling back to the bear, Lara is able to injure and deter the bear with her pickaxe while it's on full kill mode. Considering bears are extremely sturdy, shrugging off bullets and attacks from other bears without much issue, Lara's attack should scale roughly to this level, as crazy as that sounds. To further back this, she's able to injure men wearing bulletproof gear, and even shatter bulletproof helmets with her melee attacks. Tying into her physical strength is her fighting ability. She had some training from Conrad Roth before the first game in hand-to-hand fighting and using weapons, but her proficiency in both increased as the series went on. Likely through more training in between games, but almost certainly due to her being forced to constantly fight for her life during the events of the trilogy. She opts for stealth pretty often, officially killing enemies from trees, bushes, ivy, and even underwater without being spotted. When she does have to throw down and scrap, she can consistently take on 1 or 2 enemies at a time. Enemies including trained Trinity soldiers, ancient samurai, deathless knights, and the Yaxil with nothing but her pickaxe or combat knife. Oni, knight, and hag beware. The Stormguard and the Deathless are heavily armored with big swords or axes, while the Yaxil are much less armored in exchange for better mobility and speed and being utterly fucking terrifying. Speaking of speed, Lara's able to outpace and outmaneuver every enemy she's faced, putting her into that athlete to street tier level of movement speed. Her best feats once again come from her scaling to large animals. Although she can keep her distance from animals like wolves chasing her down, it's not like they all lined up on a track and raced in a 100-meter dash, so it'd be pretty disingenuous to claim that Lara Croft is faster than like a jaguar. But she was able to keep her distance from a bear chasing after her. Despite the fact that bears are big old chunky guys, just like you, they are surprisingly fast. A Siberian bear can run at over 35 miles per hour, and Lara was able to run away from this bloodlusted bear in the snow while carrying all of her stuff. Is calling Lara Croft the fastest person on the planet kinda crazy? Sure, but crazier things happen in these games, so I'm running with it. Her combat and reaction speed are much more in line with your average action video game or movie protagonist. She can tango with men twice her size and undead enemies centuries old, all of whom are presumably very well trained. She's not scrapping like she's Captain America or anything, but it's impressive nonetheless. Reaction speed is a slight step above. She can dodge melee attacks from enemies or lunges from wild animals. She can also move out of the way of dangerous debris while sliding or being pulled by rivers at high speeds. More impressively, she can dodge arrows. The speed an arrow travels can vary depending on the bow firing it, but they tend to travel anywhere from 150 to 200 miles per hour. An argument can definitely be made for Lara dodging bullets, but it's much more likely that she preemptively moves out of the way of guns that are being pointed at her, rather than her moving out of the way of a bullet that's already been fired. But by far Lara's most notable aspect is her insane durability and endurance. Every game starts her off by putting her through the ringer. First game, boat crash. Second game, avalanche. Third game, plane crash. These events are more than enough to kill people on their own, but these are just the inciting incidents. Lara then goes on to travel and fight for days with little to no rest. Her general perseverance can't be understated. She falls from heights, gets mauled, shot, stabbed for days on end and just keeps trekking along. And we do know that days do pass since there is a day and night cycle. She's not insanely durable to the point that she's bulletproof for surviving falls from hundreds of feet in the air, but she is able to take insane amounts of damage and continue fighting no issue. Not to say her durability is that of a normal human, because it isn't. She can still be shot and stabbed like anyone else, but the damage she takes from it isn't anywhere near that of a normal person. The best example of this is when she's shot directly through the arm from a helicopter turret. She ends up washing up on shore next to a Trinity soldier, who I could only assume to be without bullet holes, and still wins this 1v1 by eventually overpowering him. Although there's no way to tell exactly what gun was used, mounted helicopter turrets tend to be much more powerful than your ordinary rifle, and considering Lara still went on to mow down hordes of armed men, it's safe to say that it barely affected her, since this is what the same shot would do to your average Joe. Lara is also seemingly unaffected by large point-blank explosions, even ones that send her flying. In order for an explosion to create a shockwave strong enough to launch someone off their feet, it has to be traveling faster than the speed of sound. An explosion that strong will not only launch everything that isn't nailed down in the immediate vicinity, but also make jelly out of the insides of anyone unlucky enough to be caught in close proximity, and Lara is able to take multiple of these per game, easily her best feats of durability. There are a few outliers in terms of her physicals. There's a scene at the end of the first game where Lara gets in the way of a soul-sapping laser thing, but it's most likely only affecting her friend Sam and not a feat of Lara resisting soul-based attacks. She was also able to hurt and take hits from the final game's main antagonist, Amaru, while he was infused with godlike energy. She did stop him before he was fully possessed by the god Kukulkan. Even though he claims that he already is a god during the fight, it's certainly safe to say that his strength and durability were much higher than that of a normal person, like he was laughing off bullets. And Lara was able to take a few direct hits from his energy-based attacks. But it wouldn't feel right to skyrocket Lara's own stats to godlike status when Amaru himself doesn't have the feats to warrant it. Like, she was still able to stab him with a makeshift knife, even before it was infused with whatever energy Amaru had. Her fight against them is still impressive though, even if it only reinforces the same wall to small building level of AP and durability. In terms of equipment, Lara brings a decent variety of weapons, but still boils down to the same few categories: a bow, a handgun, a rifle, a shotgun, 2 pickaxes, and a knife. We didn't get her classic dual-wielding pistols, aside from the fan service ending of the first game, and I feel robbed. I'd be here forever if I listed out every individual gun she has access to, but she typically has an assortment of compound bows with armor-piercing arrows, pistols, revolvers, hand cannons, automatic rifles, single-shot rifles, and both pump-action and automatic shotguns. And she's extremely proficient in every weapon she owns, as she's able to headshot most enemies even while it's dark or while they're on the move. Her bow comes with rope arrows, which she uses to make makeshift ziplines, as well as an ascender to quickly traverse an area or to pull heavy objects she can't pull on her own. She also has a variety of arrows, each with different effects. Arrows that create giant poison clouds, napalm arrows that create huge pools of fire, exploding arrows that leave smaller cluster bombs, and my personal favorite, arrows that turn enemies crazy and attack anyone they see, even allies. Her pistol comes with hollow points for extra damage, and has both poison and explosive rounds for her pistols and rifles. Her shotty also comes with incendiary rounds for good measure, and her rifle comes with a grenade launcher attachment, just in case everything else wasn't enough. Her pickaxes double as grappling hooks so Lara can do her best Peter Parker impression, and at the end of the trilogy, her knife gained whatever energy was fueling Amaru. Like I stated before though, it's hard to gauge its power since it was never used outside of this fight. On top of this, Lara can craft throwable objects out of practically nothing. Objects like Molotovs, grenades, and smoke grenades. And with the use of herbs, she can increase her endurance and reduce overall damage that she takes from incoming attacks, increase her perception, or heal any non-fatal wounds. All in all, Lara Croft is around wall to small building level in attack potency and durability, with dozens of weapons at her disposal. But for the sake of being thorough, Lara at the end of Shadow of the Tomb Raider was given the power of the Mayan god Kukulkan, also known as Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god. In Aztec folklore, Quetzalcoatl was the creator of both the earth and the sun. Lara for a brief time was given the power to recreate the world if she chose to. If you want to take the creation of the sun at face value, then this should put Lara at star level, but the game implies that Lara could rewrite all of history exactly as she wanted it, putting Lara at a universal level of reality manipulation, entity beware. So there's quite the range there, but Lara did relinquish her snake god powers and left the world as it is. Thanks for watching today's video. Lara Croft might be a bit too different even for me, so we'll see how the video performs. Huge thanks to Akusero for making today's thumbnail. Their Twitter's down in the description as per usual. Next video will be on Homelander versus the My Hero Academia universe, so subscribe to see when that's out, and I'll see you guys later.